Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. In this video, we will continue the topic of central nervous system and discuss the second heading in this regard, that is the Parkinsonism. So Parkinsonism is a disease that we already discussed in the anatomy and the physiology. So if you want to have a great detail of the manifestation of the disease, you can kindly check out our anatomy section. So in this topic, we will basically discussing about the treatment of the Parkinsonism and a brief introduction to the how the disease develop. So basically, Parkinsonism is a neurodegenerative disease. As the name suggests, it's neurodegenerative. That means there is a degeneration of the dopaminergic neurons. So neurons are basically depending upon the types of neurotransmitter they secrete can be classified into cholinergic or dopaminergic. So there is a degeneration of the dopaminergic neurons. Due to this, there is an imbalance between the synthesis of acetylcholine and the dopamine. Suppose there are in total 100 cholinergic neurons and the 100 dopaminergic neurons normally. But due to degeneration of the dopaminergic neurons in Parkinsonism, suppose the number of the dopaminergic neurons is reduced to 50. Now the acetylcholine releasing neurons are 100 and the dopaminergic releasing neurons are only 50. So there is imbalance between the acetylcholine and the dopamine. So in the Parkinsonism, so dopamine is decreased and ACH is increased. So on the heavier side, on the excess side, before discussing in detail about the treatment of the Parkinsonism, let's see how the dopamine is synthesized in the dopaminergic neurons. The introduction to this we have already discussed in the adrenergic system in the ANS part. So what happens? Tyrosine enters the neuron from outside, which is converted into dopa. Dopa is which again gets converted into dopamine by an enzyme called dopa decarboxylase. So the enzyme responsible here is dopa decarboxylase, which converts dopa into dopamine. Then dopamine enters into the vesicle, which is then released into the synapse. After releasing into the synapse, two things can happen to dopamine. That is, either it can bind to its receptors or it can get breakdown into its constituent particles by the help of the enzyme monoamine oxidase or the other enzyme which is called COMT, catechol O methyl transferase. So we have got two enzymes that does the breakdown of the dopamine into its constituent particles. So this is how the dopamine is formed and synthesized and performs action. So what is happening in the Parkinsonism, there is decrease in the level of the dopamine. So how can we increase the level of dopamine? Either we can increase the level of dopa, which will convert into dopamine. Secondly, we can increase the release of dopa so that more dopamine is available in the synapse. Thirdly, we can inhibit these enzymes. If these enzymes are not present, dopamine will remain in the synapse for a longer period and act for a longer duration or have its effect for a longer duration. Or fourth method can be directly, if we can stimulate these receptors, the dopaminergic action will be stimulated. So there are four ways by which we can increase the level of the dopamine. So one is to provide dopa, which will convert into dopamine. Second, we can increase the release of dopa. Third, we can buy MAO inhibitor or COMT inhibitor. COMT stands for catechol O methyl transferase. So write down its full form in the your notes. Now next we have the dopaminergic receptor agonist. So dopamine receptor agonist will give directly this receptor will be stimulated and the action of the dopamine will be performed. So first of all, let's start with the first one, that is the increasing the dopamine by giving dopa. So most preferred dopa is the L-dopa. L-dopa is the medicine which is the drug of choice for Parkinsonism, or you can say the most effective medicine for the Parkinsonism is L-dopa. Now let's see. Now there one question may arise in your mind, why we are not giving directly the dopamine which can enter the neurons and perform its action. The problem is that the dopamine cannot enter the cross the blood-brain barrier and enter the central nervous system. That's why we have to give dopa, which will enter the brain and then get converts into dopamine by the help of an enzyme dopamine decarboxylase. So basically what is going to happen, L-dopa is going to be converted into dopamine and the enzyme responsible is dopamine decarboxylase. So when in the blood vessel, when you will take dopa orally, it will enter the blood vessel to perform its systemic action. So when it will enter the blood vessel, either it can enter into the from blood vessel it enter into the brain, or some of the dopa will also get converted into dopamine in the blood vessel itself. So we have got two pathways. Either the L-dopa can convert into dopamine in the blood vessel itself by the help of peripheral dopamine decarboxylase, or some of the L-dopa can enter the brain or cross the blood-brain barrier and enter the brain, and here it will get converted into dopamine by the enzyme dopamine decarboxylase. So basically what happens, if you give 100 molecules of dopa which will enter the blood vessel, 99 will form dopamine in the blood vessel itself or in the peripheral part. Only 1% enters the central nervous system, which will be effective. So this is something that we don't want, because the peripheral dopamine will cause other side effects as well. What are they? They can cause either decreased blood pressure, increased heart rate, glaucoma, or vomiting, because it can stimulate the CTZ, chemoreceptor trigger zone in the medulla, which will cause vomiting. So these are, besides being we have lost the so many dopa, 99% of dopa is lost and converted into dopamine, which is of no use. It is causing other side effect as well. So we don't want this dopamine. So what we do, we give peripheral dopamine decarboxylase inhibitor. So if we give peripheral dopamine decarboxylase inhibitor, this dopamine will not be formed, and more of the dopa will enter the central nervous system. So the two main peripheral dopamine decarboxylase inhibitor that we use are carbidopa and benserazide. So these are the two most important peripheral dopamine decarboxylase inhibitor. So what we do, along with L-dopa, we give carbidopa or benserazide to inhibit the peripheral conversion of the dopa into dopamine, which will cause other systemic side effect, that is decrease in blood pressure, increase in heart rate, and vomiting by stimulating the CTZ in the medulla, that is a chemoreceptor trigger zone. So you have come to know that L-dopa is the most effective way to increase the dopamine in the treatment of the Parkinsonism. But if we increase dopa more than the required, so if we increase dopamine more than the acetylcholine, so the imbalance will occur. So if there is an imbalance, it will lead to the psychosis. Psychosis are the CNS defects which can either lead to abnormal behavior or it can lead to abnormal movement. Abnormal behavior may include hallucination, and abnormal movement is called dyskinesia. So you have to control or regulate or monitor the level of L-dopa so that more than the required amount of dopamine is not formed in the central nervous system, which will lead to psychosis, either by creating hallucination or dyskinesia, which is the abnormal movements. One more last point that you can remember is that L-dopa does not stop the degeneration of the neurons. As I told you, Parkinsonism basically occurs due to the degeneration of the dopaminergic neurons. So L-dopa does not stop the degeneration. So what will happen? The neurons will keep on degenerating, and over time what will happen? The number of the dopaminergic neurons will be reduced to a greater extent. Basically, how the L-dopa function? L-dopa produces dopamine in the neurons, which gets stored in the neurons and act for a longer duration. But if the number of the neurons is reduced itself, the storage amount of the dopa will be far less, and at later stages what will happen, the stores will reduce to such a great extent that the action of the L-dopa will remain till the drug is present in the body, and it will not act for a longer duration. So this is called the on-off phenomena. The on-off phenomena basically means action of drug is present or is on till the drug is present in the body. When the drug is removed from the body, the action gets off. Earlier what was happening, L-dopa, even though it is getting removed from the body, it was acting for longer duration due to the storage of the dopamine in the neurons. But now it's not happening because the number of neurons are reduced. That's why there is the on-off phenomena is seen in the later stages of the Parkinsonism. Now let's see about the next method by increasing the release of the dopa. Now we have got the storage in the neurons is sufficient, but if the release is less, the Parkinsonism will occur. So let's see the methods which can cause the release of dopa from the dopaminergic neurons. So in this case you have to just remember one drug, that is the amantadine. Amantadine is also used for the treatment of the influenza A virus, but it is now banned in USA because many of the influenza A virus strains has gone tolerant to the amantadine due to its extensive use in the past. So amantadine is also used for the treatment of the influenza virus. Apart from that, it can also used for the treatment of the dyskinesia because it has NMDA antagonist property. NMDA is a receptor which is you can relate to the memory and neuron plasticity. So NMDA receptor is basically responsible for the memory and learning and neuron plasticity. Neuron plasticity basically means the connection between the neurons that help in the memory or the learning process. As I told you in the previous heading that by providing L-DOPA we can increase the dopamine, but the side effect was we have to continuously monitor the level of the dopamine and the acetylcholine. If the dopamine level was increasing more than the acetylcholine, psychosis was occurring, and one of the symptoms of the psychosis was the dyskinesia. So amantadine can also be used for the treatment of the dyskinesia. But the side effects of the amantadine include ankle edema and livedo reticularis. Livedo reticularis is basically the reticular-like structure or pinkish reticular-like structure in the skin. Now the third thing that we use is the MAO inhibitors or COMT inhibitors. MAO inhibitors basically will increase the dopamine in the synapse for a longer duration, and the dopamine will not break down into its constituent particles. So MAO inhibitors are basically, we have to study about the MAO-B inhibitors. MAO basically is of two types, A and B. MAO A is present in all places, as the letter or alphabet A suggests it's present on all places, while the MAO B receptor is present only in the brain. It is present in the all places, and MAO A is responsible for the breakdown of all the monoamines, that is whether it may be adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine, 5-hydroxytryptamine or serotonin. Okay, while MAO B is present only in the brain and act only on dopamine. So MAO B is basically present in the brain and acts only on dopamine. So basically what we have to do, we have to inhibit the MAO B. So we have got three drugs that basically inhibit the MAO B, that are the selegiline, rasagiline and safinamide. These three drugs inhibit the MAO B. So you have to keep in mind that, can remember the mnemonic SRS. Okay. Now we have got COMT inhibitors, that is catechol or methyl transferase inhibitor. We have got two in this regard, entacapone and tolcapone. Tolcapone is basically not preferred because, as the name suggests, it is toxic to liver. That's why it is not preferred. That's why we have preferred entacapone over tolcapone, because tolcapone causes liver toxicity. And now the last thing that we can do for the treatment of Parkinsonism is that instead of increasing dopamine, we will directly stimulate its receptor. So if you give dopamine receptor agonist, the action of the dopamine will be performed and the continuity in the brain will be maintained. So that they are basically, we divide the dopamine receptor agonist into two types, ergot derivatives and non-ergot derivatives. Ergot derivatives basically includes two, bromocriptine and pergolide. So these two are the ergot derivatives. Ergot basically is a fungus whose scientific name is Claviceps purpura. So it has got the name, or we have got the first ergot from its fungus. That's why we have got this name, ergot derivatives and the non-ergot derivatives. In the non-ergot derivatives, we have pramipexole and rapinurole. So you can see I have highlighted the pramipexole because it is the drug of choice for Parkinsonism. So keep in mind, the drug of choice for Parkinsonism is the pramipexole. But I told you in the beginning that when you're discussing about the L-DOPA, most effective or gold standard for the treatment of the Parkinsonism is L-DOPA, but the drug of choice for Parkinsonism is pramipexole. Here you can learn some causes or the side effects of the ergot derivatives. Ergot derivatives cause severe vasoconstriction, which can lead to the gangrene. So if the blood supply to a particular region, suppose the fingertips is hindered, it can lead to the gangrene. And apart from that, it also causes fibrosis. What about the non-ergot derivatives? The side effects include hypersomnolence and impulse control disorders. Impulse control disorders basically means there is certain urge to do some certain things. Suppose excessive shopping or डूइंग गैमलिंग, तो सट्टेबाजी टाइप का जो सिम्टम्स शो होता है हमारा ये साइड इफेक्ट है किसका, नॉन एर्गट डेरिवेटिव्स का. नाउ वी हैव गॉट समथिंग कॉल्ड ड्रग इंड्यूस्ड पार्किंसोनिज्म. देखो दो तरीके थे हमारे पार्किंसोनिज्म होने के, या तो डोपामिन कम हो जाए या फिर डोपामिन तो नॉर्मल रहे तो या फिर एसिटाइलकोलिन बढ़ जाए. So if there is basically imbalance due to drugs in the level of acetylcholine and dopamine, we consider it under the drug-induced Parkinsonism. So treatment for the drug-induced Parkinsonism basically used is the anticholinergics. So if you use anticholinergics, the level of acetylcholine will again come to the level of dopamine, or we can use first generation antihistaminics. So let's learn about first the anticholinergics. The most commonly used anticholinergics is benzhexol. So we have got many anticholinergics that we like benzhexol, benztropine, piperidine, procyclidine, but the most preferred is the benzhexol. And what about the antihistaminics? Why we are using antihistaminics in this case? Because as I told you in the video of the autocoids, antihistamines is basically divided into two: first generation and the second generation. The basic difference between the two is that first generation can cross blood-brain barrier and it has anti-acetylcholinergic properties, while the second generation does not have all this property. That's why you can use first generation antihistaminics in the case of the drug-induced Parkinsonism, because it has anticholinergic properties and again will reduce the level of the acetylcholine. So we have got a number of drugs in the first generation, and the one here you can remember is the promethazine. Promethazine is basically the first generation antihistaminics used for the Parkinsonism, but we have other first generation antihistaminics also. So at last, let's remember the key points. The drug of choice for Parkinsonism is, yes, it's nothing but the pramipexole, which is a non-aggregate dopaminergic receptor agonist. But drug of choice for dopamine-induced Parkinsonism is basically the anticholinergics. And the anticholinergics, the one we prefer is the benzhexol. But the most effective or the gold standard for the treatment of Parkinsonism is L-Dopa. So these 3 points you have to keep in mind. So if you like the video, please the like button and do subscribe to the channel, and the notes are available in the Telegram channel, so you can kindly join us there. Thanks for watching.